Doctors and nurses of Reddit who have delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands. What was that like? Had a patient who came into ER for UTI with her boyfriend of 4 months, his words. She was 19. Acting extremely dramatic for just having UTI. We tell her we need urine. She urges us to cath her, which is really unusual, but she says she can't pee, so me and other nurses assume the position to put in a catheter with her lying on the gurney. At this point nurse screams, "Call L&D. She's crowning." L&D nurse gets in just in time to grab the child as it shoots out into her hands and is a living, breathing baby. The girl swears she had no idea she was pregnant. They wheel her off to postpartum and the guy is just kind of left standing there, dumbstruck. "We only been dating 4 months. I had no idea she was pregnant. She never mentioned it at all." As he just buried his head in his knees while he was sitting on the floor against the hallway wall. I felt so bad for the guy. Newborn had chlamydia, got it from the mom, obviously. So the mom admits she was cheating on the dad, because there's no other way to explain that one. Except the dad was cheating too, with the other guy's girlfriend, and all 4 of them had chlamydia, with no idea who had it first. They also had no idea who the actual dad was. That was a rodeo. Just envisioning 4 Spider-Men pointing at each other. When my baby was born, people asked me if her father was Polynesian. Nope. He's a skinny white man. There was no doubt he was the father. She was born with thick black hair. She was a big baby, 4 kilograms, and had jaundice, which made her look very tan. The hair fell out, the jaundice went away, she thinned out, and I now have a strawberry blonde-haired 2-year-old that looks exactly like her papa. But man, if I hadn't known he was the only man I'd slept with, I would have some serious doubts. Not exactly the situation you're asking for, but Reddit loves a good crazy mother-in-law story. My dad is blonde and my mom is brunette. I came out of the womb with fiery red hair. My dad's mom made a huge fuss about my mom cheating on my dad and had to be escorted out of the hospital. My grandmother's own mother had flaming red hair, which she apparently forgot until my great-grandmother held me for the first time and said, "I always wanted a baby with my red hair." Mother to be warned, this could go one of 2 ways prior to delivery. Wasn't sure what she meant. She was white, as was her husband. Delivered baby was black. Then it all made sense. Not a doctor or nurse. But in undergrad I had a buddy, Caucasian, who'd been dating the same girl, also Caucasian, for a while. She gets knocked up, he proposes. Fast forward a few months and both families are eagerly waiting at the hospital to meet the baby. The baby comes out black. Everyone is in shock. Girl is frantically trying to convince everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. My buddy called off the engagement immediately, returned the ring, and never looked back. I have a white friend who is a superman of a dad. When his 3rd child was born, she was obviously of mixed race. His white wife had an affair with a black man. The wife also had substance abuse issues before this pregnancy and was no longer dependable or stable as a mother. So my friend immediately divorced her and took custody of the kids. All of them. He's been raising his 2 bio kids and the 3rd child, who isn't technically his, for the past decade. She's his princess and he loves her exactly like the other 2. Not a doctor, but someone in my extended family had a baby, 2 Middle Eastern parents, that turned out to be dark-skinned. The father of the baby filed for divorce, even though the mother kept saying the baby was his. A few years later, they found out that the mother's great-grandmother was African and that the baby obtained strong genes from her. They didn't get back together, because too much had gone down at that point, but the mother was right all along. To think this would have been solved with a paternity test. To think so many problems in the Middle East could be solved with science instead of magical sky people. Anesthesiologist here. C-sections are typically done under spinal anesthesia, and we're the ones at the head of the table keeping the mother calm and talking her through the procedure while the surgeons operate. I've seen it more than once, but I remember one in particular when the parents were both very Caucasian, and the baby was very much not. The actual father obviously had to be very dark-skinned. At delivery, When the not father saw the baby, he just looked down at his wife, who was starting to cry, and calmly said, "You fucking whore," and walked out. She started screaming for him to come back, but there wasn't much she could do since she was, still being operated on. She lost it to the point I eventually had to sedate her just a bit because she was in danger of injuring herself. As far as I know, her husband never came back to the hospital. I don't know what happened after that. Obligatory: not a doctor or nurse. But both of my parents have blonde hair. When I was born, my hair was strawberry blonde. My paternal grandparents lost their shit and accused my mom of cheating because red tinted hair didn't run in their family. However, it ran in my mom's family, with a redhead popping up every now and then. My paternal grandparents didn't know that, they just really hated my mom, so looked for excuses to drag her down. It wasn't until I stopped looking like a potato, as most newborns do, and started looking like a person when my dad's family features came through enough to make them apologize to my mom. I was told this story by a nurse. Veracity might be clouded by time, but a birth of the couple's third child. The couple was white, the baby was obviously of Pacific Islander descent. Everyone went very quiet. The nurse telling me the story said she took a moment of silence as she realized what had happened, then she tried to act normally, but waiting for the outburst. She said the tension was unreal. The guy stared for a minute at a child that was very obviously not his. The mom was already in tears and talking very fast. The guy stood up, looked around for a minute, then left the room. Never said a word. He wasn't seen again at the hospital. The mom spent the rest of the day on her phone. The nurse doesn't think she ever found him. The last part is even more distantly related gossip, but allegedly the father cut all ties immediately, speaking regarding care of his two actual kids only through his lawyer. If any of that is true, I take my hat off to the guy. My brother had a surprise baby this way. He and a coworker had a one-night stand while she was broken up with her ex. She gets back with her ex. Ends up pregnant. Flash forward to the delivery day. The day my brother sends me a picture of a random baby out of the blue and says, "I think I am a dad." She is white, her boyfriend is black, my brother is white. Baby came out looking very, very white. I don't know how it went down in the hospital room. But I know they separated very soon after. My brother went to visit her in the hospital and asked her if she would let him take a paternity test. She agreed and it came back positive a week later. And that's how I got my surprise nephew. Okay, story from a friend of my brother's. She worked as a nurse and a woman and her husband came in. They were both white, and she delivered a child that was black. The husband immediately starts saying WTF, while she is going on and on about dormant traits and everything. He orders a DNA test. While this is going on, her mother and stepdad show up. The stepdad is black. After the testing is done, the DNA test ends up showing that the baby is the stepdad's. Her husband instantly dropped her and cut ties. Probably going to get buried but still want to share. Not my story, it's the story of my dad's friend. In high school, my dad's friend Carl was always into this girl Cindy, but she was always dating this one guy Jimmy. Jimmy breaks up with Cindy and she goes off the rails, sleeping with everyone. Carl sees it as his chance to be the good guy and starts dating her. I'm not sure, but they either had a Ross and Rachel thing where they kept on breaking up and getting back together, she broke up with him, or that she was always cheating on him. Especially if Jimmy was hinting at them getting back together. They never did though, and he'd just sleep with her. But Carl never listened to my dad or his friends because of blind love. She was perfect in his eyes. So high school is over and Carl goes to the army. They weren't officially dating, but every time he was able to come back he'd end up with her a night or two. My dad and his friends knew that she was sleeping around the whole time, but Carl didn't care. Eventually, while he was still serving, she convinced him that they were dating again. He proposed to her and she looked around for a house for them that he paid for with his army money. He comes back for good and they get married. A year later they have a beautiful baby girl together. That baby girl is his everything. This guy grew up a migrant worker and now he has his high school sweetheart, a home, a decent job, and his own little princess. 5 years later his wife gets pregnant again. This time she has a baby boy. Now he has to start working more to be able to care for the new baby while mom continues to be a stay-at-home mom. When the son is around 2 and the girl is around 7 he comes home to divorce papers and all his clothes packed up. Turns out the lovely house the wife had to have was because it made her the next door neighbor to Jimmy. This entire time she was still sleeping with him despite him also having a partner. The little girl and baby boy Carl thought were his weren't, they were Jimmy's kids, and Cindy knew it. Jimmy's partner had left him so he finally wanted to be a family man and Cindy jumped at the chance kicking out Carl and divorcing him. He went into a depression and ended up losing his job because of it. I'm not sure what happened after that but I hope Carl found a nice loving girl in the end. From my friend who was a delivery nurse for years. The mother takes the doctor aside and makes him promise to let her know the color of the baby the instant he knows. The baby is born and the doctor announces to mom, "Congratulations on your beautiful, healthy white baby." The father just walked right out the room and they never found anything more out about it. It's sometimes best not to leap to conclusions too quickly. When I was born my skin was a little blue, thankfully my dad didn't get angry and accused my mom of fucking a Smurf.